Awesome. Here's one of my favorite chapters. It's a little bit catchier and it's just super fun. So this idea of, the movies do it, TV does it, why don't you do it? And you're like, what is that? And I remember I was first reading this, I was like, what is that? And I figured out, I was like, whoa, that's a game changer. So I'm really excited to share this one with you. Let's go over to the computer and let's make it happen. Sweet. So many years ago, the Philadelphia Evening Bulletin was become misaligned by a dangerous whispering campaign, and a malicious rumor was being circulated, and advertisers were being told the newspaper was no longer going to attract readers because it carried too much advertising. And this is kind of funny to look at now with what I'm doing with like the companies, and it's just kind of a little cool thing. And so advertisers were being told that because nobody cared about the advertising, they needed to have immediate action, and so the gossip had to be squelched. They had to make people stop talking about this so that they would keep buying newspapers and keep looking at ads and keep, making money for the people that bought ads in the newspapers, right? And so the way they did this was actually kind of interesting. At first, they took the bulletin, clipped from its regular edition of all reading material of all kinds on an average day, and they classified it and they published it as a book. And this was really interesting. They have this one book, and inside this one book is all of the content for a single day of the newspaper, and they call it one day, and it's a published book, and it contained 307 pages, as many as a hardcover book, and yet the bulletin printed all this news and feature material in one day, and sold it not for several dollars, but for a few cents. And the printing of this book, here's the cool thing, it dramatized the fact that the bulletin carried an enormous amount of interesting reading matter. It conveyed the facts more vividly, more interestingly, more impressively than pages of figures and mere talk could have done ever. Because it was a physical representation of the underlying material, right? And it was one that they could really see and touch much more, and have a really deep connection with compared to just some kind of newspaper. So this idea of dramatization, really cool. And what's interesting is like merely saying the truth isn't enough, because the truth, like if you just tell someone the truth, that's not enough. You need to visualize it, make a vivid, interesting, and dramatic version of the truth, and use showmanship. The movies do it, television does it, and you want to do it if you want attention. Another really powerful example. I think it was like the state inspector of New York was looking at popcorn buckets at movie theaters, and at the time, like popcorn buckets were super unhealthy. There was so much butter in them, which is kind of crazy. And the unhealthy part's not the butter, the unhealthy part's the carbs. But this guy was really focused about the saturated fat that was in popcorn, and he realized that popcorn had like some number of saturated fat, grams of saturated fat. And the amount of saturated fat was ridiculously high. It was like 800% what people are supposed to normally eat. And he's trying to think like, how can he show this to people in a way that they'll visually see it, in a way that dramatizes it, and makes it stick in their mind, and makes it more important to them. And this concept, this story actually comes from a really good book called Made to Stick. And if you're doing any kind of marketing or ideas, or you're trying to share ideas with people, this is an insane book. And this story comes from there. And so basically what he did is he got a news team together, and he said, look, I want all the media guys to come to me because I have a huge break from the U.S. Food and Drug Administration about the health of popcorn, and it's super important. It's going to be a game changer, and you guys are going to love it. And so that's exactly what he did. He got everyone together, and he got this table, right? And on this table, he put out like this feast. It was insane. There was like 5 like steaks. He got like 1 steak, 2 steak, 3 steak. Just these massive like huge fillet steaks. And then he had like sticks of butter, just tons of sticks of butter. And then he had a bunch of candy, just tons and tons of candy, so much candy. And to give you guys some perspective with these insane drawing skills, this is basically like how big a person would be, and this is how much food there was. There was just so much food. It was enough food for like 10 people to last a week on. It was a ridiculous amount of food. Then he comes up here and he stands on the podium and he says, hello, thank you guys for coming, really appreciate it. What I want to talk to you guys today about is the amount of saturated fat in popcorn, because they used coconut oil, which on the low key is insanely great for energy. If you need something to put, like coconut oil, MCT powder is 10 out of 10. Learned a lot about that in like Tools of Titans. Just ridiculously cool things there. And he stands up on this podium, okay, and he says to these people, he says, the amount of saturated fat in 1 medium bag of popcorn is the same as all the saturated fat in these food that you see in front of me. And it was like 10 days worth of food. I mean, it was insane. There was like pounds and pounds and pounds of pork and steak and candies, and it was insane. So much food. And these guys went haywire. They took tons of pictures of this huge smorgasbord that he put together, and the next day it was all over the world, front page of the news, massive, 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 massive impact. Changed the lives of everyone. The movie industry had to change how they did their oils. They changed everything because everyone had a huge public backlash. Why? Not because the headline was 800% daily saturated fat. No one knows what that means. No one cares. The headline was like, you know, the amount of fat you eat in a week is in a bag of pop. That was the hook. That was the story that got him to the front of everybody's face and allowed him to change the way the popcorn worked in the movie industry. It was all because he took what he had in his mind and he created a dramatized physical representation of it, turned that into a reality. That was the key. Once he understood that, it was 10 times easier. It did not take any effort to make it happen because he was there doing it. Yeah, just really, really powerful stuff and some really great resources. So what's cool is experts in window display know the power of dramatization. For example, manufacturers of a new rat poison gave dealers a window display that included 2 live rats. And the week the rats were shown, sales zoomed 5 times their normal rate, because it dramatizes the product. Television commercials around the world are like, you guys know, like ShamWow, like, you know, the tape stuff. Like, what is that? Those are examples of people using dramatic techniques in selling product. You know, oh, what are you gonna do if your boat gets sawed in half? You know, oh, you need flex tape. Like, that's a dramatic use of a product. That's what sells. That's what gets attention. That's what converts. And that's what you can use to share your ideas and your personality and anything that you desire with others, to capture them in your world and bring them in and say, this is the coolest thing ever. One thing I'm doing with my book, I'm so proud, I'm like so excited to try this, is you like light it and you douse it in like oil, like grill oil, like fire, you know, fire oil, whatever you put in a fire, like lighter oil, lighter fluid. You douse the whole book in lighter fluid, then you set it on fire, and then that's your advertisement for the book. You're like, oh, this book is on fire! And oh my gosh, just like, that's the idea, right? Is you want to dramatize whatever you have physically, and it'll get so much more attention, and it'll have such a bigger impact. Not only, like, you don't have to be trying to influence hundreds of millions of people to do this. You can just do this with a couple of friends. All you have to do is understand what kind of change you want to see, and then turn it into reality with a physical dramatization. These 2 books will kind of help you do that. They're really, really good. They're like basically game changers. So with that said, television commercials absolutely blew it out of the park. Yeah, I mean, look at what advertisers do. This was obviously written kind of a longer time ago when people watch TV. And then it talks about this idea of an ad where, like, you know, there's detergent and it turns grease and leaves it, you know, beautiful and clean. Or car manufacturers that have a series of turns and curves that are super elaborate and much, much more dangerous than what you would normally see in reality. Just this idea of showing viewers or people that you're talking to or clients that you have the advantages of what you have, and then getting people to go and just freaking buy it. And that's the goal, that's the foundation. What's cool is you can dramatize your ideas in business or in any other aspect of your life really easily. Jim Yeamans, who sells for National Cash Register in Virginia, told about how he told a story about how he made a sale with a dramatic demonstration. It was actually kind of cool. So obviously, you know, he sells cash registers. What he did was he called on a neighborhood grocer and he saw that the cash register they were using, the checkout counters were very old-fashioned. So he approached the owner and he said, "You are literally throwing away pennies every time your client goes through your line." And then when he said that, he took like a giant handful of pennies out of his pocket and threw them all over the floor. And all of a sudden, this owner became much, much more attentive. And he invested like what, like $1 to get 100 pennies? And that dollar turned into a massive, massive, massive sale. He quickly became more attentive, and the mere words that obviously would have interested him were massive, but the actual sound of pennies hitting the floor stopped him in his tracks, and he was able to get an order from him to replace all of his old machines. How cool is that? And what's cool is it works in home life as well. You know, when the old-time lover proposed to his sweetheart, did he just use words of love? No. He went down on his knees and showed that he really meant what he said with dramatization.